Welcome back to another deep dive. We are so glad you could join us today.
Glad to be here.
So I want to jump right into a really fascinating paradox in the modern corporate landscape.
Mm,
I mean, everyone in the business world knows that SAP essentially runs the global economy.
right. Absolutely.
If you are tracking supply chains or, managing multinational payroll or forecasting quarterly revenues at a Fortune 500 company, you are living inside that ecosystem.
So you're completely tethered to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But while the software itself is ubiquitous, very few people understand the specific, hyper-lucrative microeconomy of the consultants who actually build and configure it.
It is a microeconomy that operates almost entirely out of the public eye, yet it dictates the operational flow of the world's largest companies.
It's wild.
When you look at the compensation packages for senior SAP consultants, they routinely rival those of upper-level executives.
Which just sounds crazy to most people.
It does. For those outside the enterprise architecture space, those numbers can seem totally disconnected from reality. But as we parse through the materials today, analyzing their intersection of IT configuration and business strategy, that premium valuation starts to look less like an anomaly
Right.
and more like a very rational market response to a severe operational bottleneck.
Okay, let's unpack this, because today's source material is a really comprehensive breakdown. It outlines exactly what an implementation looks like on the ground, and it details 6 distinct drivers behind those massive salaries.
Which is really helpful context.
Right. So the mission for our deep dive today is to demystify this niche career path. We want to understand what happens when hardcore technical configuration collides with deeply entrenched corporate culture, and why being the person who can, navigate that collision is so incredibly valuable.
Because it requires a rare cognitive duality. You are dealing with individuals who must possess the architectural rigor of a software engineer and the strategic foresight of a chief operating officer. When a multinational corporation decides to migrate its legacy systems, they aren't just buying software licenses.
It's not just a download.
No, not at all. They are undertaking a massive, high-stakes operational redesign, and the consultant is the architect of that redesign.
Let's start right there with the reality of an implementation.
Yeah.
Because I think there is this misconception that installing enterprise software is just a very large-scale version of downloading an app.
Right, like an update on your phone.
Exactly. You click agree to the terms and conditions, wait for the loading bar to finish, and suddenly your logistics network is magically optimized.
If only it were that simple.
But the day-to-day reality for these consultants is fundamentally different. It's deeply steeped in change management.
What's fascinating here is the sheer amount of friction involved in that process. A consultant's job begins long before anyone touches a keyboard. They first have to map the granular reality of the business. And the documented processes of a company rarely match how the work is actually being done on the floor.
Oh, I could totally imagine that. You walk into a procurement department, and the official manual says they generate a purchase order through this specific multi-step approval workflow.
Yes.
But then you interview the actual procurement manager, and you find out they've been bypassing the official system for 5 years using a rogue Excel spreadsheet.
Exactly. Because the old software was too slow or too clunky.
Right.
And the consultant has to uncover those hidden workarounds. They are sitting down with business users and asking microscopic questions.
Like what kind of questions?
Things like how they specifically value their inventory, how they recognize revenue across different tax jurisdictions, or even how they physically handle customer returns at the loading dock.
Wow.
They have to extract the actual operational truth from the employees. And once they have that map, they have to figure out how to translate those real-world, often very messy processes into the rigid, standardized framework of SAP.
Which brings us perfectly to the first major driver of that premium salary, right? The sheer interconnected complexity of the system itself.
It is massive.
We aren't looking at isolated software tools here. The source describes this as an ecosystem where every module is deeply intertwined.
That interconnectedness is the defining characteristic of the platform. You have distinct modules handling distinct operations.
Right, like the FI and CO stuff.
Exactly. FI for financial accounting, CO for controlling, MM for materials management, and SD for sales and distribution.
Okay.
But they do not operate in silos. They are in a state of constant automated communication.
Let's look at a practical example of that ripple effect. Say a consultant is configuring the FI and CO modules.
Okay.
They aren't just setting up general ledgers in a vacuum. They have to understand how a highly specific procurement rule configured over in the module is going to, trigger a financial discrepancy down the line.
That is the daily reality, yes.
Like, if a warehouse in Germany receives raw materials, but the manufacturing happens in Mexico, how does the consultant configure the transfer pricing so the Mexican plant's controlling module reflects the correct margins, while the German finance module remains perfectly compliant with European Union tax laws?
That is the exact level of complexity they navigate. If you change a configuration setting to solve a supply chain bottleneck in the logistics module, you need to know with absolute certainty how that change will impact the quarterly financial reporting.
You can't just guess.
No, you cannot learn that through trial and error because the errors are catastrophic. Mastering that web of dependencies requires an analytical capacity that most organizations simply do not have in-house.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. It is that rare hybrid of business knowledge required. This is reason number 2 from our breakdown.
Yes, the hybrid skill set.
Right, because it's not enough to just know how to navigate the SAP graphical user interface or how to write custom code.
The technical proficiency is just the baseline. It is merely the price of admission. The true value, the reason a consultant commands a premium rate is their deep, practical understanding of business processes. To effectively design a solution, they need to fundamentally understand how a specific company actually makes its money.
Where the margins are tightest.
Exactly, and what regulatory environments it operates within.
So you are essentially paying for a translator.
A very expensive translator.
Right. You have brilliant IT professionals who know how to maintain servers and optimize databases. And you have brilliant business executives who understand market strategy and corporate finance. But those two groups notoriously struggle to communicate with each other.
They speak totally different languages. If we connect this to the bigger picture of the labor market, finding someone who speaks both languages fluently is incredibly rare.
It really is.
Executives might mandate a new strategic initiative, right? Like offering dynamic volume discounts to global distributors.
Okay.
They hand that mandate to IT, and IT looks at the legacy systems and says it can't be done without breaking the entire billing cycle.
So it just stalls out.
Exactly, but the SAP consultant is the hybrid professional who steps into that gap. They look at the strategic goal, translate it into a custom software configuration, and ensure the billing cycle remains intact.
And in any market, a rare skill set that directly bridges that gap between technical capability and revenue generation that translates directly to higher compensation.
Absolutely.
That deep business knowledge is exactly why the stakes are so high, which leads into the third core driver of these salaries. I want you, the listener, to really think about the level of risk involved here.
It's monumental.
We are talking about the system that controls a multi-billion-dollar company's most vital data. If they get that supply chain configuration wrong, it's not just an IT bug, it's a halted warehouse.
The risk profile is astronomical. These systems manage the real-time values of entire global inventories. They process millions of dollars in customer orders every single hour.
It's nonstop.
And they generate the official financial statements that are reported to shareholders and regulatory bodies.
Right. If the sales module stops talking to the inventory module because of a botched update, trucks physically do not get loaded.
Customers do not receive their products.
The financial reports are instantly compromised. The company is actively bleeding money until the issue is resolved.
And that is why companies are paying a massive premium. It's for operational peace of mind. They need consultants who are meticulously careful, who understand how to design bulletproof testing environments before anything goes live.
Yeah.
More importantly, if a critical failure does occur, they are paying for a professional who can diagnose and solve the problem instantly before the financial hemorrhage becomes public knowledge.
High responsibility inevitably commands high compensation.
It is essentially hazard pay for the corporate world.
Hazard pay, that is a great way to put it. And it brings up a crucial reality check about this career path. The compensation is elite, and the stability is generally very high because companies are permanently tethered to these systems.
They aren't going anywhere.
Plus, your skills are globally transferable across incredibly diverse industries. But the trade-offs are severe. It is notoriously high stress.
It is a pressure cooker environment. The work is driven by unforgiving deadlines.
Right, the go-live dates.
When a multinational corporation has committed to a specific go-live date for their new system, moving that date can cost tens of millions of dollars in extended project fees, not to mention delayed operational capabilities.
The pressure on the consultants to deliver a flawless system by that exact date must be immense.
It is.
It sounds like the ultimate set of golden handcuffs. You are paid exceptionally well, but you have to run a mental marathon every single day to keep earning it, especially when you consider the scale of these implementations, which is our fourth pillar from the source material.
The timelines are staggering.
We noted earlier that these aren't quick updates. A standard implementation project can take anywhere from 1 to 3 full years to complete.
And that timeline surprises a lot of people outside the industry.
I'll admit, it surprises me. If SAP has been a global standard for decades, and the core business processes of, say, a manufacturing firm haven't fundamentally changed, why does it still take 3 years to implement?
That's a very logical question.
Shouldn't there be a template by now?
There are templates, and best practices are heavily utilized, but you are underestimating the organizational friction of a digital transformation.
Okay, tell me more about that.
You are rarely walking into a greenfield environment where you can just build a system from scratch. You are usually ripping out decades of highly customized legacy software.
Oh, right.
You're migrating fragmented data from a dozen different obsolete systems, and you are forcing an entire workforce to change how they do their jobs.
Okay, that makes sense. You are fighting entrenched corporate culture just as much as you are dealing with data migration.
Exactly. And during that 1 to 3 year timeline, the consultant operates as the central hub of a highly complex wheel.
They are managing competing interests from all these different departments.
Always. The finance team wants the system configured for maximum auditing transparency,
Sure.
while the sales team wants it configured for maximum speed and flexibility. The consultant has to navigate those departmental politics, manage tight budgets, overcome technical roadblocks with the developers, and somehow keep the executive sponsors satisfied.
They basically have to be a project manager, an enterprise architect, and a corporate diplomat all rolled into one.
A corporate diplomat is exactly right.
Managing those different personalities and competing departmental priorities for 36 months requires a level of emotional intelligence that you wouldn't necessarily associate with software configuration.
But it is critical to the role. A brilliant technical configuration will completely fail if the consultant cannot convince the business users to actually adopt it.
Let's shift gears and talk about the geography of the job, which is pillar number 5. Because global supply and demand play a massive role in these salaries. SAP is ubiquitous. Companies across Europe, Asia, and the Americas rely heavily on it as the backbone of their global commerce.
It is the lingua franca of global enterprise operation.
But if it is the global standard, why is there such a severe talent shortage? You would think universities and training programs would be churning out qualified professionals to meet that demand.
It is a classic economic bottleneck. The demand from multinational corporations is expanding constantly as they acquire new subsidiaries or upgrade to the latest cloud-based versions of the software.
Right.
But the supply of elite talent remains highly constrained. When a logistics firm in Japan, a manufacturing giant in the US, and a financial institution in Germany are all fighting over the same small pool of experienced consultants.
It forces a global bidding war.
Exactly.
So a consultant might be flown from London to Tokyo simply because they are the only available person who deeply understands a highly specific cross-module integration for automotive manufacturing.
Precisely. Companies have to offer aggressive salaries, comprehensive benefits, and significant flexibility just to attract and retain the talent required to keep their operations running. The scarcity of the resource dictates the price.
Which brings us to a really important point, why that scarcity exists in the first place. This leads into the 6th and final driver of the premium salary outlined in our source, the grueling learning curve.
Yes, the barrier to entry.
You don't just graduate with an IT degree, take a 6-week boot camp, and suddenly become a senior SAP consultant.
The barrier to entry for true expertise is exceptionally high. It is a long, arduous journey. It generally takes several years just to grasp the foundational architecture of the system.
Just the foundation.
Yes. And then you integrate into your first few projects and begin understanding how the software interacts with real-world business cases. You're essentially serving a high-stakes apprenticeship for the first phase of your career.
But wait, I have to push back on this a bit. With a massive shift towards cloud computing and SAP's push to standardize their newer platforms, making them more intuitive and user-friendly, shouldn't that learning curve be getting flatter?
You would think.
Why does it still take a decade to become a true expert?
That is a very common assumption, but it conflates the user interface with the underlying business logic.
Ah, okay.
Yes, the modern cloud interfaces are much cleaner than the old legacy screens. And yes, standardization is a major push, but the complexity of a global supply chain hasn't gotten simpler.
That's true.
The regulatory requirements for international finance certainly haven't gotten simpler. The software still has to map to those incredibly complex realities.
I see where you're going with that. The buttons might be easier to click, but knowing why you are clicking them and what cascading effects they will have across a global enterprise still requires deep institutional knowledge.
Exactly. To build the kind of experience that commands top-tier compensation takes a solid 5 to 10 years of continuous hands-on problem solving.
A decade of work.
When a corporation hires a senior consultant, they are not paying for the hours that person works that week. They are paying for a decade of absorbed business cases.
Yeah.
They are paying for all the mistakes that consultant witnessed and learned from on previous implementations. They are paying for the intuition required to spot a potential integration disaster months before the system goes live.
You are paying for mistake avoidance.
Precisely. That acquired experience is incredibly valuable, and it is impossible to fake. You simply have to put in the time under pressure.
And the technology keeps changing.
Constant change. So a consultant must commit to exhausting continuous learning just to stay relevant. The moment you stop updating your knowledge base, your highly valuable skills begin to aggressively depreciate.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring all these threads together. The massive salaries we see in this specific consulting world are not a fluke, and they aren't just an arbitrary tech industry bubble.
They are the logical, almost inevitable result of a very specific set of economic and operational circumstances.
It is a perfect storm. You have the mind-bending complexity of the interconnected system modules, where a change in procurement ripples through to international tax compliance.
Yeah.
You have the incredibly rare need for a hybrid professional, the translator, who understands both hardcore IT configuration and high-level corporate strategy.
Exactly.
You have the heart-stopping financial stakes of controlling a global company's critical operational data. You have these massive multi-year implementations that require intense change management and diplomatic leadership to overcome entrenched corporate culture.
The corporate diplomat.
Right. You have a global bidding war driven by a massive talent shortage. And finally, you have a decade-long, grueling learning curve acting as an impenetrable barrier to entry. All of those factors combine to create one of the most premium valuations in the corporate world.
It is a masterclass in the value of specialized applied knowledge.
It really is. And I want to make sure you, our listener, take away something actionable from this, even if you have no intention of ever navigating an enterprise software configuration.
It applies everywhere.
It does. Understanding how these roles operate is incredibly valuable for your own career strategy. Because understanding the power of being that translator, someone who can sit comfortably between two vastly different departments, like technical engineering and executive business strategy, and speak both languages fluently, that can completely reframe how you view your trajectory.
It is a massive advantage.
Finding those hybrid intersections in your own industry, where friction is highest and communication is lowest, is almost always where the most value and the highest compensation is hiding.
That is the crucial takeaway. And this raises an important question for all of us as we look at the future of work. We discussed how these consultants must commit to continuous learning to survive because the technology landscape is never static.
Right.
So I will leave you with this final thought. In a world of constant, rapid technological shifts, where artificial intelligence and automation are threatening to commoditize basic technical skills every single day, is the ultimate future-proof career strategy not about mastering one specific tool or software.
That's a great point.
Perhaps the truest professional security lies in becoming that indispensable translator. The person who can bridge the chaotic gap between complex, ever-evolving technical systems and fundamental, unchanging human business needs.
Being the bridge instead of the tool. That is a brilliant way to frame it. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you walk away with a totally new perspective on the hidden microeconomies that power global business, and maybe a few ideas for how to become the indispensable translator in your own field. Stay curious out there, and we will catch you on the next one.
Thank you for listening. Goodbye.